The story of the banyan tree and its ghosts. Have you heard this story? It's a very good story shared by a friend as follows. I would like to briefly tell you about the story of the little banyan tree, because it originated from a thrilling story in my hometown. I grew up on the outskirts of the city. In front of my house is a small road and on the other side is a river branching from the big river Dreaming About. On both sides of the river there are banyan trees, bodhi trees, table trees. It has been growing here for a long time. It looks like the old trees that often grow at the top of village communal houses. Near my house, there is a banyan tree that grows with a very strange shape. Just its branches, it looks just like the house, compared to other banyan trees. And also here, people in the neighborhood often throw away the incense trees. Pagodas, shrines, or picture frames of deceased people, when they no longer use them, come here. And from there, the tree appeared many times during the period. In the 1990s, I was 8 years old and didn't know what ghosts were. That's what I heard from people, but what did I know? Until I see it with my own eyes. Although my place is near the city, there are no electric lights like today. Every 7 o'clock the street is dark. Occasionally, a motorbike passes by, so luckily there is some light. That night, around 8:30 p.m., my mother asked me to go buy spices, because the house was lacking. I was really angry at that time. Why didn't I tell her to go late in the morning and then ask me to go buy them? I thought so, but that's right. Buy it without being scolded to death. It's close from my house to the grocery store, but I have to go through that banyan tree. Luckily the moon is bright tonight so I can see the road quite clearly, and sometimes I see the lights of the houses light up, which makes it less scary. So I started going. As I walked, I sang to ease my fear. As I approached the corner of the banyan tree, someone suddenly threw stones at me. I immediately looked around and asked. At that time, I thought the kids in the neighborhood were playing with me, so I had to slowly continue walking. One more step and she was thrown in the head again. At that time, I was so crazy that I screamed. If any of you are good, come here and let me see. It would be humiliating to play while hiding. As soon as I finished speaking, I was hit in the head with a rock. I was so angry that I ran all the way to the grocery store. At that time, I thought to myself, by now all my friends in the neighborhood would be home, so who would throw me? So on the way back, I had to pass a banyan tree and I said loudly, "Who is it? I'm not kidding." At that time, my eyes had just looked up at the banyan tree, and at that moment, there were dozens of dark shadows on the banyan tree looking down at me. At that time, my face turned pale and I ran away like that, but how could I not know that I was still there from the banyan tree to my house? Part 1. Why couldn't I run away? I was both scared and tired, so I cried there and then. Suddenly, a motorbike passed by and I was so happy that I could suddenly walk and immediately ran all the way home. The next day I told my grandmother. She just because I knew she must have seen it too. As for that banyan tree, there was a time when my friend in the neighborhood urinated on the corner of that banyan tree. The next day his penis was bent on one side, and so his whole family had to hire a monk to pray at the corner of that tree. Hopefully it will end. And the next story I tell is about Hungry Mom at the corner of the banyan tree. I think this story is probably because I'm a bit stupid, so I only met it by chance, but I think anyone who wants to meet a ghost should tell me once. Then if you do it your way, you'll be fine. I'd like to join the story. I'm grown up now, 17 years old, my house is also near the banyan tree, everyone knows it. But what's even scarier is looking down from my second floor window. Right at the banyan tree, the second floor of my house is a place to worship the dead, and I'm also the only grandchild, so the family assigned me to be the one to burn incense for my grandparents every night. At this time my grandmother also gone. And so the story started when every night I smelled the scent like a stick of smoke and I didn't know where it was, so I decided to take it out the second floor window and close the door, as if that's been about 1 week. If you're wondering why I'm so low on incense sticks, it's because I take them based on emotion and don't count the number of incense sticks, so I often get things like that. And until the second week, I ask you if the smell is low, like I'm sitting outside the window. My aunt said that if the incense is low outside the window and has no owner, a hungry ghost will enjoy it. At that time, I was so scared that from then on I stopped hanging out the window, and it all started from there. So that night I didn't smoke incense outside the window again until the third night. That night I finished incense and closed the window before going to bed. Forgot to tell you that I'm also on the second floor, right next to the table. Worshipping grandparents. Around 2 o'clock I saw many black shadows flying out the second floor window, and 2 other black shadows flew in and sat next to me. I couldn't see their faces clearly, but I looked closely. These 2 people are already as old as my grandparents. Wearing a black hood, with a black jacket like an old man's machine, he stared at me. At that time I tried to struggle, but somehow I couldn't do anything. I sat and looked at you for a while as if I wanted to say something. Then the other man pulled the other man's hand and flew out the window and disappeared with the other shadows. That's when I woke up. I immediately looked out the window and the door was open and the wind was blowing in. It was very cold. This was the second time I saw ghosts at the corner of the banyan tree. A few years later that banyan tree was destroyed by a storm, and since then no one has seen anything more. It's my first time telling a story, so I don't know how to tell it. And that's the end of the 2 stories you shared. Next, I would like to tell everyone a strange story in folklore. The story is called Spreading Beans. Everyone said, "This is strange, I've never heard of the name scattering beans on the Jun River before. Is it possible to grow beans on the river? Don't know where Jun River is. How did this story originate?" Just by hearing the title of the story, you already know it's about stories on the river. Now let's try telling it for everyone's entertainment and reflection. The air begins to move violently. The captain of the boat protects the soul of Ngu Tutu. Water clapped against the sky, thunder shook. Waves on the ground, horses jostling. The heavenly wheel is fixed, light and dark. The universe is now divided, clear and opaque. Where is all the war in South Vietnam? The fishing village was filled with cheers in the afternoon. The ancient poem only talks about the tidal waves in the river's veins. The water here is extremely strong, pushing up dangerous storms, often sweeping away soldiers and civilians, overturning passing boats. That's why from ancient times, the River Jun has been considered the most dangerous rivers. It is said that in the early years of the La dynasty, there was a poor family on the banks of the Jun River. There was a breadwinner in the Hoang family named Nguyen. The couple opened a shop specializing in milling beans to feed the young and old. Staying at home all day, having to stay up late and get up early every day, working hard, struggling to get by day, having today's meal to worry about tomorrow's, struggling to find food every day. Many years ago, the Hoang family was also a wealthy family in the locality. Often charitable, accumulate virtue, build bridges and build shops, and do many good deeds. But I don't understand how he offended the gods. But during Hoandnian's reign, his family's fortune was completely destroyed. Every day the couple laments, prays to heaven and earth for mercy, goes to temples and shrines to pray, not knowing how much longer this miserable life will last, if there is no longer an old mother in the above family. If there were no wild children left, the couple would have already held hands and jumped into the river to commit suicide. One day, Hoandnian had to grind a bag of grain for someone else's house. Because there was no donkey in the store to pull the mill, he had to pull it, sweating profusely, struggling to breath. By the time I finished, it was already late at night. I was about to close the door and go home when I suddenly saw an old man coming from nowhere. This old man is not tall, his eyes and nose are small, his figure is as thin as a water pipe, he wears a white burlap long robe, his outfit is very strange, his eyes in the dark night glow the blue of water. Mr. Lao came straight to the milling shop, his face miserable, and asked Hoandnian for a moment. Hoandnian replied, "I wonder if you have come all the way here to teach me anything." The old man said, "I have something to ask, so I came to bother you." It turned out that he brought a boat of wealth back to his hometown. When he reached the Jun River, he encountered strong winds and waves. The sailors and boat driver were all swept down the river. He was lucky to escape death and keep the boat of wealth, but there was no more any boatmen and sailors. The boat ran aground on the beach and could no longer move back and forth. There was no port here, then no shop, so he had to ask Hoandnian to guard the boat for one night, so he could go to the city to hire workers to repair it. Returning to the ship early in the day of departure, of course he would not ask him for nothing, he promised to pay him 1/10 of the wealth on the ship. Although Hoandnian was a poor man, he was full of kindness. When he saw someone in trouble and was promised a reward, he immediately nodded in agreement and said, "This is a small matter, it's not difficult, you can go ahead. Find someone to hire, I'll stay and look after the goods, it's definitely okay." The old man thanked Hoandnian 5 times and 7 times, telling Hoandnian not to lose the goods. "If I don't return tomorrow morning, sooner or later my descendants will come to get it." Then he hurriedly went into the city that night to hire workers. Hoandnian did not go home, he was hungry alone, tired, and built a fire on the riverbank, sat down on the ground to watch the boat. At midnight, the wife became impatient, lit a lamp to search, and heard Hoandnian tell the story clearly. The wife also said, "Rescuing people in need is a good deed, should not be negligent, then the two of you will change together, starving each other to guard the boat." Unexpectedly, for 3 days and 2 nights, the old man did not return. Hoandnian did not want to lose faith, so he went into the city to search, listening everywhere, but could not find out where the old man was. Hoandnian began to be confused, immediately discussed with his wife that the old man was unlucky. If he encountered robbers on the road, he might lose his life. However, how would he know what to do with the boat's wealth? "Since the old man promised to give me 1/10, why don't you go up and see what's in the boat?" The couple decided so they went inside and saw a boat of soybeans, no less than 10,000 pounds, and each seed was round and round. Hoandnian has been in the milling business for a long time but has never seen such a high-quality product. He immediately took out a large scale, took out more than 100 kilograms, then went home to mill and make soy milk. Who would have thought that after being made into bean milk, this type of bean would have a sweet fragrance everywhere? The taste was so delicious, you would want to take another sip after taking one sip, and soon everyone would buy them all. Ho and Nian and his wife had been selling for several days, but without seeing a sign of the old man, they decided to take a few more beans from the boat, intending that if the owner of those beans returned the next day, they would combine their capital plus interest to pay him back. Just do it yourself. In 3 months you will have taken out 10,000 pounds of soybeans in the boat. From then on, the Hoan family prospered. It's true that once the first thing is clear, 100 things are clear. Ho and Nian originally came from a trading family. Once he had capital in hand, he immediately switched to another business. From then on, he had good luck. A few years later, he acquired a large fortune, bought houses, fields, and gardens. In the house of many servants, prosperity grew day by day, wealth increased day by day. Ho and Nian is now a famous millionaire, but still remembers the old man every day. Without the old man's soybean boat, how would the Hoan family be like today? The more he thought about it, the more he realized that this story was not ordinary. Sometimes when he talked to his wife, they all thought that the strangely dressed old man was the god Ngu Thong, Ngu Hin, seeing that we Hoan family have always been heavenly men. The faithful woman, always praying, moved up and intentionally performed miracles to help. It seems we need to paint statues and build bells, and every year we have to set up several ashrams to thank the heavens for their merits. Unfortunately, the fun was short-lived. By the 9th year, every time he slept at night, Ho and Nian would dream of someone knocking on the door. When he opened the door, he only saw people like ferocious ghosts rushing in. That group of people looked fierce and ugly, all wearing white robes and ancient hats, scolding and punching Ho and Nian without any mercy, saying that the Hoan family owed the old man a debt. They gave him a large sum of money, then pulled out a notebook and showed Ho and Nian line by line. On that book it was written very clearly, on this day, this month, this year, how much money did the Hoan family use the old man's bean boat to make, and on what day, what month, what year, did they use that money to do business? What to sell, how much profit to earn. Now that your family has appropriated capital to make a fortune, it turns out that you are taking over everyone's share. Now the debt has matured, quickly pay off both capital and interest. Every night, Ho and Nian was startled awake by that strange dream. When he woke up, he saw bruises on his body, pain all over his body, and was so scared that he lost his mind and stopped eating and drinking. Skinny as a skeleton. He realized that he must have brought on a great disaster, so he quickly invited a lay person who was good at seeing good and bad deeds to ask about the origin of the misfortune. The layman asked clearly about the cause and effect. After hearing it, he immediately told Ho and Nian, "You have indeed been repaid by cause and effect. In your destiny, you were not destined to be rich, but the couple did not have the heart to live in poverty. They prayed to heaven and earth every day endlessly, but in the end they were captured by the evil spirits of pagans." Jiang River heard it. They pretended to come to give you fortune, tricked you into taking their things, now you have to pay them back both principal and interest. All those 5 wisdoms and 5 manifestations are demons and ghosts, and have never done good things. Whatever they give, they will definitely ask for it back. In the past, there was a debt that had to be paid. No one can save you. Not only this inheritance but also the loss of the whole family's life cannot be enough to compensate. When Ho and Nian was told, he knew that the job had gone wrong, and was afraid that disaster would strike the young and old in the family. He did not dare to delay, then prepared exactly 10 boats of premium quality beans, then prepared many offerings such as pigs, cows, and goats, returned to the middle of the river, and knelt down with his wife at the head of the boat, lit incense, and kowtowed. Threw everything into the riverbed. I saw the water rolling and turbid, and countless strange-shaped fish appeared in the river, opening their mouths and competing to rob each other. Hoangnian silently recited Amitabha Buddha, thinking that he had repaid all his debts. He was secretly excited when suddenly he saw a big storm rising. It was truly a dragon trembled at the bottom of the water, a ghost cried in the air. Big waves suddenly jumped up from the Jun River, and in an instant they crashed down, sinking all the boats. Everyone on the boat was buried in the fish's belly. By the time the waves calmed down and the weather was calm, the village where the royal family lived was swept away. It's pitiful that Hoangnian refused to settle down, even though he had a few years of wealth. In the end he had to pay with the lives of his whole family. It's true, even though the power dominates the world, when the fate runs out, is it okay? The story scattering beans on the Jun River is half true and half false, but without fire, how can there be smoke? It only advises those who resent the sky and hate themselves not to think superficially and call heaven and earth for nonsense, nor to be greedy for things does not belong to me. You should know that richness is just a year-long dream. Fame is no different from floating clouds in the sky. In the end, everything has been destroyed. Comment: there is a law in the world that says, no loss, no gain, no gain, no loss. That is, if there is any loss, there is no gain. If there is gain, there must be loss. If there is something, there will be loss. If there is gain, there will be loss. This is an immutable law from ancient times to the present. For example, when people go to temples or shrines, or accidentally ask for something, for example, for material things, the gods and Buddhas do not give them to them, only evil spirits can satisfy them, but that is also a problem. In exchange, they give to you but will take away your blessings. If you ask, they will help. Nothing is random. So when you go to the temple, don't pray for fortune or money. The above story is just an advice, and this is the end of the story. If you hear the story and find it interesting, please give me a like and 1 subscriber. Hope everyone has fun listening to the story. See you in the next videos. Goodbye.